It's Christmas morning of 2011. A father watches his two children open gifts as mom sits nearby. It was a very typical, quintessential Christmas morning. Everything seemed to be going well for the family. They had just introduced a newborn son into the world just 7 weeks prior, in addition to the 3 and 8-year-old daughters they already had. However, one thing was amiss. The mother, sitting on the couch, watching the children open gifts, was not alive. Za'Zell Preston, age 26, and William Wallace, age 39, were a couple living together in Anaheim, South California. The two were raising two children together, two daughters. They had gotten married, and later down the road, Za'Zell became pregnant and the couple welcomed a new baby boy into the world. Za'Zell, looking to make a better life for her and her kids, had enrolled into college, where she was taking classes with the goal of becoming a domestic violence counselor. A career path you'll come to find was very personal to her. She had a picture on Facebook in which she was kissing her husband, where she wrote, "Lovebirds for life." However, as you may have come to assume by this point, their relationship was not really all it was cracked up to be. William had been violent with Za'Zell, sometimes very seriously, for about a decade by this point. William had always been violent towards Za'Zell. He had laid his hands on her many, many times by this point. One of her relatives had come over to visit once in the past, only to find her wandering throughout the street, completely dazed from a particularly bad hit to the head. She was also pregnant at the time. He had served jail time for his attacks in the past, multiple times in fact, but he always came crawling back. Fast forward to about 2011, William had been released the previous summer on related charges, but sadly Za'Zell had allowed him to move back into their apartment together. On Christmas Eve, William and Za'Zell were overheard arguing outside of their apartment complex after attending a nearby Christmas party at a neighbor's home. It isn't known exactly what happened after this point, but the couple's loud voices were heard arguing outside of their apartment building, the situation quickly escalating. Later that night, a neighbor saw what appeared to be William picking someone up near the apartment gate, and I mean literally picking someone up. Perhaps they thought it was nothing more than a drunken night after a Christmas Eve party. These things do happen. However, the assault continued inside. Za'Zell even attempted to flee the apartment at one point, but was dragged back in. Eventually, the fight escalated to the point where William threw Za'Zell onto a glass table, shattering it. According to their oldest daughter herself, she even had to help her father carry her mother into the bathroom, where she helped pull shards of glass from the coffee table out of her. William did what he always did. He had laid his hands on her many times in the past and had always gotten away with it, even if it ended up with a little time in prison. She always healed from her wounds and life went on, seemingly as normal to those around them. However, this time was different. She succumbed to her injuries late night on Christmas Eve, as her children slept blissfully in the other room. William knew that he had screwed up. This was Christmas after all. He had kids coming to open presents in the other room. What could he possibly do to fix what he had done by this point? Obviously, there was nothing that could fix this. He did, however, feel that he could put a band-aid on the situation and delay the inevitable a little bit more, at least until after Christmas. First and foremost, he spoke to the kids, shamelessly, despicably passing the blame on to Za'Zell. He explained to the kids that their darn mother had gotten absolutely plastered and ruined Christmas. The sheer audacity of this alone would have been enough. However, he wasn't content to simply pass the blame. He wanted to give the illusion of a seemingly normal Christmas experience. Putting sunglasses on his wife, he pulled her into the living room and positioned her onto the couch. He propped her up into as much of a lifelike position as he could. The lie that she was blackout drunk made this obstacle a bit easier to overcome. The kids, however, completely blissfully unaware, proceeded to open their presents in front of both of their parents, completely ignorant to the unspeakable horror unfolding right in front of their eyes. Their oldest daughter, 8 years old at the time, would later on go to say that she approached her mother, but she felt cold. At some point, even William here realized how absolutely stupid this stunt was. Maybe he felt a pain of guilt, or perhaps he was worried that one of the children might try to interact a little more closely with their mother. He, of his own volition, decided to call the police himself around 9 a.m. and report that, in quite the innocent tone, his wife needed medical attention. Ambulances were called and paramedics soon arrived to the home. They arrived and, to their confusion, saw her sitting calmly, to the degree of being motionless, on the sofa with sunglasses on, indoors and in the morning. Obviously, they quickly discovered that she was long gone by this point. William tried to weasel out of the situation, saying that she had injured herself a while ago, but not being as stupid as he assumed them to be, the paramedics didn't believe his story and promptly called the police. He was, understandably, very quickly put under arrest. He remained incarcerated from that point onwards, obviously considered to be a danger. He was placed on a whopping $1 million bail, facing 25 years up to life in prison. William, through his attorney Heather Moorhead, persisted his claim that this was all a tragic, self-inflicted accident on Za'Zell's part. Moorhead would go on to say, "Mr. Wallace is being accused of something that is not his fault. You will hear about a relationship that was full of arguing and yelling, but also a lot of love." Which is, one hell of a take on the situation. The story gradually developed over time, and came to be that Za'Zell had fallen onto a glass table, shattered it, and hurt herself. This was certainly a shot in the dark, as the story couldn't stand up to even the slightest bit of scrutiny. Police, searching the apartment, found various blood spots all over the place, including multiple holes bashed into the drywall and a door that had been knocked off of its hinges. The glass table story also differed from the story that he had told to his own family. He told them that his wife had flown into a rage, attacked him, and bit him. According to him, he didn't even fight back, even in self-defense. He said that, while attacking him, she fell and hit her head. To add to this, they had the testimony from Za'Zell's family members. They told police that he had come near to the point of ending her life several times before in the past. Za'Zell's mother had, in fact, told police herself that William was nothing but a psychopath who only cared about himself. At one point, Za'Zell even had to contact the police from a convenience store bathroom in a desperate attempt to escape from her husband. "We begged her not to marry this guy," said her mother. "I told her I had a bad feeling about him," said her grandmother. In response to this, during his trial, William told the jury, flippantly, that he had gotten drunk and tossed her around a bit. He said that as if this was just a normal part of a marriage. What he thought would lighten the accusations actually did the opposite and exposed his evil thought process to the jury. However, the case became complicated. William and Za'Zell's daughter told officials that she had indeed seen her mother fall onto the glass table. However, it wasn't stated whether William had pushed her on it or not. The lawyer, Moorhead, elaborated on this, saying that the father and daughter carried her into the bathtub, where she accidentally hit her head along the way. William said that all he knew was that she hit her head and likely suffered a concussion. He did, on the other hand, admit that he knew she had passed before Christmas morning. During the trial, a representative from a local women's shelter even testified that Za'Zell had attempted to escape from her husband multiple times in the past, even implying that she was, at the time, in the process of trying to get away from him for good. Jurors were not convinced that William was acting in self-defense in any capacity. They were, without a doubt, going to convict him. Their decision mainly came down to what charges to give him: involuntary manslaughter, murder, if so, first or second degree murder. The case dragged, to say the very least. In March of 2021, after years and years, it finally went to court. It wasn't until this year, in June of 2021, just a few days before this recording, that William was finally convicted on his charges. William, who had been in custody for 9 years straight by this point, was sentenced. Despite his long history of violence and even attempts on his wife's life, William was only convicted on charges of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison. As a part of his sentence, he was given credit for the 9 years that he had already spent behind bars. Only time will tell how long he will actually spend there. Hopefully to the maximum. He hasn't shown any chances of changing before, despite the many chances he had in the past. Once again, thank you for watching my video. If you found it interesting, please give it a like. If anything, it helps get the channel seen by other people. If you want to hear about kind of weird, unknown cases, be sure to subscribe. I talk about these things quite a bit. And I've also got a Patreon recently. Speaking of which, thank you to all of my current patrons, with a shout out to my top tier patrons. Cami Kruger, Brittany Marchbanks, Angelin F., Toy King 10, Teresa Ferguson, and Jackie. Thank you for supporting me yet another month. I can't really thank you enough. So, good night, and I'll see you next time.